Welcome to Robert Bellissimo at the Movies. This is a YouTube video podcast exploring storytelling on film, as well as interviews with industry professionals who work in film, television, theater, among other areas of the arts. Recently, the 2022 Sight and Sound poll was released. The critics poll sure as hell caused its share of debate and all kinds of arguments that I've been seeing online since this poll has been released, with Chantal Akerman, Gian Diamant coming in at first place. There's been a lot of debate, as I said, a lot of arguments, and I wanted to do a video to not get into the drama of all that, I don't want to just throw in my 2 cents about what I think should be number one, or what I should be in the top 10. Lists, I have a hard time with lists in general because, you know, my tastes change and evolve and all the time, you know, and I have a hard time just saying this is my favorite, that's my favorite. However, I thought, you know, what if I had to pick 10 movies from these 95 films? If I had to pick 10 that I could only watch for the rest of my life, which 10 would I pick? So I gave it a lot of thought, and I wouldn't necessarily pick the 10 movies that are my favorite or that I think are personally the best. I would pick the 10 that has the most variety and that I, of course, think are phenomenal works. But I would want variety, and I would want to see moving, great performances and great films and great art. I wouldn't necessarily just go with a top 10 if I could only see 10 of these movies for the rest of my life. And so I came up with 10 that I feel are quite diverse and are quite different in a lot of different ways. And so here they are. And I also, for a bit of fun, thought I would start with where the film was ranked from the lowest to the highest. So my top pick is Sunset Boulevard, which came in at number 78. This is a film noir I loved. For those that I love, for those of you who follow my channel, you know that I'm a big film noir fan. I've done so many film noir reviews. This is one of my favorite film noir movies, and it's just so good. I mean, only Billy Wilder can bring so much humor, dark sense of humor, to a film noir. And, you know, it's a very noir theme to have characters who feel stuck. And surely, you know, Gloria Swanson's character, Norma Desmond, is stuck in the past. And here we have William Holden's character who is stuck in the present and is in a bad situation where he's, you know, desperate for money. His writing career is not going so well. And so here he is with Gloria, Gloria Swanson, and he becomes her lover, which of course leads to a very, very dark ending. But it certainly has a dark sense of humor. That ending is iconic, where she kills Holden, and here she is thinking that she's going to go down and star in a movie with all these photographers and cameras and everything, and she makes her entrance down the stairs, but really we all know where she's going, right to jail. So it's so twisted, it's so dark, yet it's so funny. And I love everything about it. The use of voiceover, the flashback, use of flashback starts with the murder, and then we go back in time where Holden is telling the story, just looking at Hollywood during that time, LA noir. It's incredible. So certainly that is a film I would want to see again and again. After that, this came in at number 52, Ali, Fear Eats the Soul. Rainer Werner Fassbinder's film. I absolutely love this film. It's so simple, so poetic, and it really explores racism in Germany. We have this much, much older woman who is with this much younger man, and he's from Morocco. She's an old German woman. And so it explores the way people responded to the fact that she was with someone who was from Africa, the racism, and of course their age difference. And I love the simplicity of a number of the shots that just spoke volumes, and the great DOP Michael Bauhaus, who went on to do many films with Martin Scorsese. You see off the top, she comes into that cafe that he frequents all the man she ends up marrying with all of these people from Morocco as well are in there, and she comes in and she stands at the doorway and looks over at them, and then he cuts to everybody looking back at her, and there's just silence, and you know right away that she's an outsider, that there she's not being necessarily welcome there, and that picture just tells the story. It's just incredible how simple it is, yet how much is being communicated with the use of the language of cinema. And I absolutely love it. There's a couple of I shouldn't say a couple. There's a number of sequences like that, particularly later on when they're having lunch out in that diner, and you see it's a wide shot and no one is sitting around them. They're just all alone as all the waiters and everybody looks at them from a distance. So there's just these people looking and saying nothing, and it just speaks volume. It speaks volumes as to what everybody is feeling by just these looks back and forth. It's incredible. I absolutely love it. That's a film that I certainly, in this top 95, would want to be able to see again and again. After that, number 48, Wanda, Barbara Loden's sole directorial film, which she also wrote and starred in. I love this movie. On the one hand, on the surface, it is like a crime film in the sense that this woman who is alone and has left her family, and she has no voice. She's very timid, and she meets up with this criminal bank robber, and they join together to do this robbery. And it seems like it's going to be, on the surface, it feels like it's going to be some kind of an 70s New Hollywood. It is 70s New Hollywood, but like one of those crime films that we know so well, like Bonnie and Clyde. And it's not at all. I mean, it's very quiet. It's very she's very passive. It's very minimal. It's very simple. And she's a woman who has no voice. You know, she's a woman who doesn't necessarily know what she's doing, who's confused, who has left her family because she feels trapped. She feels stuck. And she's, you don't even necessarily know everything about her backstory, but you get such an understanding about her because of what she's not saying and what she's not doing, and she's not standing up for herself. She gets involved with this guy and she lets him push her around. She just is, you get the impression, it's so ambiguous, but my impression is that she was just used to being told what to do. And so she doesn't take ownership. She doesn't know how to take control of her life. And then, of course, at the end, after he gets killed, she drifts about and she's all alone. So what's next? On the one hand, it's optimistic because she is taking a stand. She is trying. It's just that she's confused, and it's that conflict. I mean, so many movies you see characters facing obstacles where they are perfectly capable of handling the obstacles, and here's a character who we don't necessarily know if she's capable of handling what she's experiencing, and she's really struggling. And I think it's just such a quiet, subtle, nuanced performance by Barbara Loden. She was really incredible. I actually reviewed this for my Patreon members back when I had my co-host, and you'd have to sign up for my Patreon to see our review, but he hated this movie. And it was one of the few videos where we literally got into an argument. I mean, we would argue before, for anyone who have seen me and my co-host Steve Chambers reviews, there would be arguments, but there would always be fun. And this was not fun. It got a little heated, and he just couldn't stand to see a character so passive. And I think that's what's interesting, is because we don't see that enough. We see people going after goals and confident and being able to face the obstacles. We see that so often. And here's a character who she's got obstacles, but she doesn't really know what to do. She's just confused and trapped in a lot of ways. And so I think that infuriated him. And I think a good piece of art, a good film does that. So certainly Wanda makes my list. After that, Bicycle Thieves came in at number 41. I actually have the Criterion here as well, the DVD. It's wonderful. This has a lot of great special features as well. One of the great neo-realist films, certainly, Vittorio De Sica. And again, also so poetic, so simple, and it has this real heightened melodramatic quality, but is so realistic at the same time, depicting what people in Italy were going through right after the war, how they were really, living in poverty, really struggling, really trying to survive. And this one bike that the father of this family gets finally is a way to take care of his family, to put posters around Rome where they live, and to be able to put food on the table. And of course, when the bike is stolen, the whole film is him and his son going after that bike. And that bike literally is life or death. And it's so powerful, so moving, so simple. That when you see a film like that, you're thinking, how did they do this? How did they pack so much feeling into something that is so simple? And again, it's really what the bike represents. And that last scene where he nearly gets arrested, and when he gets so desperate to steal another bike, and his son Bruno is crying and saying, "Papa, Papa," and all the men are pushing him around and hitting him, and the father is just absolutely broken. And luckily they let him go, and they empathize. I mean, the man doesn't press charges against him. Clearly he had pity, felt bad for him. He can see what was going on here with him and his son, and that this guy was desperate. At least I took it that way. And so he made a poor choice in a desperate situation, but it's so good. I mean, it moves me to tears every time I see it. Absolutely love it. After that, number 36, City Lights, Charlie Chaplin. Incredible. Another film so simple that you think, how did they do this? How did he make this so moving? How did he make this so funny? How did he make this have so much meaning? How did he say so much about life in a film that is so simple, with these series of set pieces and gags, while also having these scenes that are incredibly loving and moving and touching? And of course, what comes to mind is that last scene where the woman who was blind, that he saved her, and now she can see. He got the money for her to get this operation, and she's seeing him for the first time. The tramp, who is now come out of jail at this point, and he's literally in rags, and she sees him, and they see each other. And of course, that great close-up with Chaplin, biting it looks like he's biting either the flower or his fingers, and he's so shy and he's so embarrassed, but he's so happy to see her now being able to see, and with the flower shop, with the money that he gave her, and she's able to invest in this flower shop. It's beautiful, because of course the whole film, no one can see the tramp. Everyone just looks at him as a certain type. And we do that in life all the time. This person's a quote unquote bum. This person's quote unquote crazy. This person's quote unquote so gorgeous. And we just see the surface of things, and we get ideas about people, but we don't really reach out and see each other enough. And I think that is what makes this film so timeless and so moving. So I recently reviewed that. Actually, I've reviewed all of these films that I'm going to be discussing. The only one, like I mentioned, that I haven't reviewed, that I've only reviewed is on my Patreon, is Wanda. So if you want to see my review of Wanda, sign up for my Patreon. I'll leave the link in the description box below where you can do that. After that, number 31, one of my favorite films, 8.5. I mean, Fellini he's incredible. I mean, sometimes I think, will there ever be anyone as good as Fellini again? And I think that's going to be very, very hard to top, because he just makes this film after La Dolce Vita that topped La Dolce Vita, and it's like, how do you do that? And he manages to do it by doing this film that is so surrealistic and so complex. Guido, played by Marcello Mastroianni, this filmmaker who's making this science fiction film. It has autobiographical aspects to it, and so he's having a hard time making the film, because it is about him to a degree, and so he can't face himself. which means he can't face the film, and so his personal life and the film crumbles all around him. And there's the scene that I love the most in this. Well, there's so many, but the last scene where he just suddenly feels happy as the company packs up, the film's not even going to happen, and he basically says to his wife, you know what, maybe I don't understand everything about myself, and maybe I'm so confused, but life is a celebration, and so we just have to accept ourselves. And so that great that great dance with the at the end is so wonderful, and it's just so great. The flashbacks when he was young, the surrealist dreams where he's talking to his parents, when he says to his father, we've spoken so little, and his father seems to be talking about everything except what his son just told him. It's so good. Again, you look at this and you think, how did he come up with this? How did Fellini do this? Wonderful. After that, Taxi Driver, number 29 on the list. I have the DVD here. This was released in 2007. I recently was very fortunate to have the chance to interview Harry Northup, who played Doughboy in the film. He's so good. I'll leave the link in the description box below if you want to see my interview with Harry. He was a wonderful guest. This is certainly one of Scorsese's best, if not his best films. Travis Bickle, again, he combines sort of neo-noir and gothic horror to tell the story of tragic. It is tragic. Travis, in a very stylized way, and it has such wonderful performances, of course, from Robert De Niro, Harvey Keitel, Jodie Foster, Sybil Shepherd, and it's just this man slowly losing his mind, and he's so complicated, and he contradicts himself so much, and he blames everybody around him instead of looking inward more so, and so he's certainly someone who needs help, but again also has a dark sense of humor. You think of that scene where he takes Sybil Shepherd to the porn theater, which makes you on a date, and she, as you all know, I'm sure anyone watching this has seen Taxi Driver. She storms out and doesn't give him another chance, and he literally is baffled. He literally does not understand that is not a good idea to take a woman to a porn theater on a date. So what's interesting again is we don't know Travis's backstory. We don't know why he wouldn't understand that. He was in the Marines, that something happened to him that is, just has done something to him where he wouldn't understand that that's not a good idea. Was he living under a rock his whole life? You don't know, which the mystery is really fun and really interesting to dive into and to reflect on and to consider this man. I love it. But he has his share of flaws. He's racist. He's violent. The last time I watched it, there was a lot about it about him that is just really repulsive. But that was the 70s. They were putting people up on the screen that you wouldn't necessarily want to know in life, but certainly were empathizing with them, with their motives and why they think and feel the way they do, which makes for a great film, a great story. So Taxi Driver certainly goes on my list. That's number 29. Number 18, Persona. Bergman, again, Ingmar Bergman, another film that you watch this and you think, how did he do this? Again, also has this surrealistic quality to it. And it's such an ambiguous film. So many people have so many interpretations about this film, where we have Liv Ullmann and Bibi Andersson. Are they this, it's this duality where are they the same person? Are they two sides of the same personality? Is it all a dream? Bibi Andersson's dream? Or maybe even Liv Ullmann's dream? You don't know. And every time I see it, I have a different view, and I see so much more. It also explores homosexuality and many themes, but abortion and the confessions monologue that Bibi Andersson does is one that has stayed with me since the first time I've seen this film, and I've seen it a decent amount of times, and it's so vivid, and she does it so beautifully as she tells this story that she hasn't you imagine she hasn't told anyone about having this orgy on a beach with two young boys, as she puts it, and another woman who she hardly knew, and having sex over and over again with this young boy, and then at later seeing her husband and having sex with him, and as she says, it was the best. It had never been better than that with her husband, and it never was again. And then she falls pregnant, and so she doesn't know. Clearly, she didn't know who the child belonged to, and she has an abortion. And so you think this is the mid-'60s where we're seeing a film about a woman openly talking about having an abortion. I mean, it's shocking now. Not that aspect to it, but it's shocking now to think to hear this woman who is also religious and talking about this orgy with young boys. I mean, that is really quite daring and bold, and it's so fascinating to me, and it's something that I'll never forget. It is performed so beautifully from BB Anderson, and of course just Liv Ullmann, who doesn't say anything in the film really other than I believe just a line. She has like a line in the film, and just her presence and her listening and the way she responds to BB Anderson is it's stunning. It's beautifully cast, and it's so atmospheric. It's beautifully shot. It's really wonderful. So Persona certainly makes my list. After that, I have the DVD right here. The Godfather, of course, which comes in at number 12 on the list. Absolutely love this film. This is a film, of course, I have seen many times. I just reviewed it earlier this year, and this operatic story of this mafia crime family, and inspired so many crime stories that came later, because here we're really looking at what it's like for the family to be involved here, and the relationships between the sons and the daughters and the parents. Michael Corleone, played by Al Pacino, of course, he sells his soul in the end just to be accepted by his family. He's the outsider. He's the one who goes off to the war, who doesn't join the family business, who wants his own life. And on the one hand, when the Vito was shot, he was sort of the best person to take over the family business, or else who knows what would have happened to the entire family when the threat of war loomed. So he had to, but on the other hand, he wanted to an extent, because he wanted his father's acceptance. He wanted to be accepted and included in the family. And I mean, it's ambiguous, but I believe he did not like being an outsider. He wanted to be part of it. And of course, by not following his instincts, by not following his own path in life, he's left soulless. And of course, we see in part 2 how he goes deeper and deeper into darker and darker territory of his soul. But certainly it's one of the all-time great films directed by Francis Ford Coppola, number 12. And lastly, which came in at number 2, which was number 1 last time, Vertigo, one of my favorite Hitchcock films. To me, the images are so powerful, so striking. And so I know Scorsese said this, on the one hand, it's such a silly story, but yet it's such a sort of really far out there story. But that's what is so great about Hitchcock, is that he can make these surrealistic stories where the plot seem sort of silly on the one hand, but yet be so moving and so powerful, because the essence of the film is so powerful. And Jimmy Stewart here is psychologically really interesting. And he loses this woman that played by Kim Novak, not once, but twice, really. And as Hitchcock says, he's like a necrophiliac. I mean, once he finds her again, he thinks that she's someone else, and then he transforms her into the way she looked before when she was pretending to be someone else, Kim Novak. For those of you who've seen the film, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the film. But that is really interesting how he was sort of bringing this woman back to life. How Hitchcock got through the production code, really by coding a lot of the sexual themes and the sexual tension and the eroticism, is really, really fascinating. So I really do love the film, and it's interesting how when it came out, it didn't do very well, and it wasn't really discovered for a number of years, and now we see it. It's often people feel it is one of the best films of all time, and it's certainly one of my favorite Hitchcock films. I absolutely, absolutely love it. So those are the 10 that I would put on my list if I only could pick 10 of the 95 and watch these 10 for the rest of my life. This is what I would choose. So I'm very curious. What would you choose? Comment below and let me know. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. I want to thank all of my members on Patreon. If you're interested in becoming a member of my Patreon, head over to the link, patreon.com/RobertBellissimo@the-movies for full details. And if this is your first time here on my YouTube channel, please consider subscribing by pressing the Robert Bellissimo at the Movies logo. You will see it floating above my head in the top left corner to your top left in just a second. Just click on that and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time I release one of my new episodes or when I go live. Thank you so much, everyone. I will see you in the next episode.